guys, what I want you to do now, we're going to start a new project today. You're going to work with your partners, and what you're going to do, since we're moving into automation robotics, we're going to be looking at how engineering goes into the development of a product. So what I want you to do right now, I need everybody to go to your Project Lead the Way site and make sure that you are in your automation robotics course, not the app creators. Okay, and we are going to go to lesson A, project A.3, which is STEM investigation. And remember, if it says project, what does that mean? Summative, exactly. Okay, so the last course, or the last class, you guys went through your Project Lead the Way course, and you looked at the different ways that STEM, which is, what are the 4 letters of STEM? What do they, Lainey, what do they stand for? Mathematics, great. How those 4 different areas go into the development of different projects. Jack, tell me what the difference is between an invention and an innovation.
An innovation is something that already exists that you make better, and an invention is something that you make that doesn't already exist.
Perfect. Okay. So what you and your partner are going to do today is you are going to explore some artifact. And if you look at your Project Lead the Way course and click on the bubbles beside artifact, it means what? Human-made object. So if it's already developed, would that be an innovation or an invention?
Or up to.
If it's already been developed, it's an invention, right? But it could be something that has been innovated over the years. Okay, so what you and your partner are going to do is you're going to choose a human-made object, which means you can't choose a tree or a mountain or a rock. It has to be something that has been created by man. And you're going to answer a series of questions. Click on the link that says Project A.3 STEM Investigation Questions to Guide You. Okay, now there are 9 questions plus a little, there's 9 questions in total. One of them contains a table. Since you're working with a partner, it only has to be written down in one notebook, but I want both partners working together to answer the questions. So what you're going to look at is what artifact did you choose? What's the purpose of your artifact? Why was it developed? How was it used originally? Who was the original inventor, and when was your product invented? How was it used when originally invented, and then how is it used today? Can y'all think of something that had a completely different purpose when it was invented than what we use today? What? Taylor, saying you're not? Okay, tell me, how is it different when it was invented versus today? What do you think?
Like it used to be more, more difficult to use. Oh, okay.
No, I get what you mean. It was a lot more complicated, and it was it originally invented for us to be sitting here with them in front of us looking at this?
No.
What?
It's based off what I know. It's for it was used for science.
Used for science. Actually, one of the first computers probably saved the world. Do y'all know that story?
No.
You should tell it.
Well, actually, you pass by a sign every time when you get ready to come into this class. Have y'all ever noticed a banner that's out here?
Yeah.
Yes? What does it say?
I don't know what it says, I just know that it's there.
Is a banner there?
There's a banner right outside the wall. When you leave, when we go to lunch, we're going to look at that banner, and I want you to read what it says, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how the quote came from someone who developed one of the first computers and what it did and how it saved the world. So, say it.
Alan Turing.
Alan Turing. What do you know about Alan Turing?
He solved the German, like, language code in World War II or something like that, right?
Yes, okay, so what happened was the Germans developed a code machine. So whenever they would transmit their instructions to their planes and to their troops and to their submarines and their boats, they would send out the instructions on, or the information on what's called an Enigma machine. So the Germans had an Enigma decoding machine. So when they heard the transmission, all they had to do was type it in and then they could decode it to know what it really said. Well, the Americans were able to get an Enigma machine. I don't know how they got it. It's probably kind of like when Princess Leia delivered the Death Star plans, you know what I'm saying? And if you watch Rogue One, you know everybody got destroyed, but the plans were safe. Okay, so probably about the same thing. We developed the Enigma machine. We didn't develop it, but we obtained it. And in England, they hired a team of mathematicians. Why do you think they'd hire mathematicians? What?
Because usually mathematicians usually know a little bit more about technology. You know how to decode, possibly decode stuff.
What do you know? Okay, let's think about this. If you're decoding something, what do you notice in something that's been coded? What does your mind look for first?
Patterns.
What?
Patterns.
Patterns, exactly. And mathematicians are usually pretty quick to pick up patterns and try to see where the patterns are. So they were developing, but here's the problem. Do you know what the problem was with the Enigma machine? If they did just see a pattern, do you know what the problem was?
Was it all binary?
No.
It was a exact.
No?
We changed the pattern, wasn't it?
Yes, changed every 24 hours. The code changed. So even if you figured it out, like if you, let's say you started at 6 o'clock in the morning and you worked and you worked and you worked and you worked, and then it was 3 o'clock in the morning and you're like, I got it. Well, guess what? 6 o'clock in the morning, completely different code. So it didn't do you any good. So Alan Turing developed what he called Christopher, and it was an early computer named after his best friend that he was in school with. And he had to fight with the people who hired him because they thought he should be spending more time developing patterns, and he spent all of his time with the computer. So I'm going to show you all a scene that in just a minute that shows you that. But anyway, so that's why the computer, yes, the first initial time that it was invented was not intended for all of us to use. But that's what you're going to look at, our original product, and how it has changed over time. Number 5, that's the part where you're going to look at what innovations have been made to the product. What changes has gone on. Number 6, how has your product impacted society in a positive way? And number 7, how has it impacted society in a negative way? What's something you can think of that you can see both ends of it?
Phones.
How? Okay, tell me a positive way phones can be used.
It's basically just a computer in your pocket, and you can look up anything at your will. If you wanted to, you could know anything that you wanted to know.
Okay, but how can it be used negatively?
Like you can get addiction onto it.
Yes, you can have addictions to it. What else?
It's decreasing the amount of brain power that people use.
Very good. What about communication? Are you actually communicating more or less, do you think, with your phone?
Well, face-to-face less, more.
Okay, it's easier to communicate, like long distance, but you're right, you get more communication, but you get less face-to-face. Okay. All right, number 8, you are going to complete a chart like the one shown, how to document science, technology, math, and engineering. You remember when you took that example of the pencil and you looked at how did science go into making the pencil, how did technology go into it, how did engineering, like when Chad had the example of the levee and y'all broke that down, okay? You're going to do a little chart like that, and then the last question is, if you had the ability to change this product in any way, what would you change? It might be a big change, it might be a little change. Okay, so after you finish answering all the questions in your notebook, then what you're going to do is you're going to create a presentation. And if you want to use PowerPoint, that's fine. If you want to use slides, that's fine. If you want to use emails, or if you want to use Prezi, any presentation software is fine with me. But you're basically going to create a presentation that shows the information that you found about your product, and you're going to share it with the class, okay? Now, on your slides, there is some criteria of what needs to be contained in there. If you look at number 4 on your course, you have to include your team member names, class period, and the selected artifact. B, you need to have something that explains the original artifact. It'd be nice if you put on there who the inventor was, when it was invented. A picture of the inventor would be great, and the original object. List the disciplines of engineering that were most important to the development of the artifact and how these disciplines were essential. So when you look at your table that you created, that would be really good to put for that slide. A timeline drawn to scale showing the history of the invention, including changes or innovations. Something that tells about major changes, because a lot of products have small changes throughout the time, but like, think about the iPhone, okay? So when it first started, you had the iPhone 3, right? And there, every year they come up with, we're already at iPhone 11. So what were some of the biggest changes? Because sometimes you just have a small change, sometimes you have a big change. Give me one big change.
The phone's much bigger.
It's much bigger? What else?
One big thing is the camera quality.
Okay. Megan, what else?
Well, I was saying there's more cameras.
There's more cameras. What else?
The screen, like, is bigger.
The screen is bigger. What else?
The way you get into the phone.
How do you get into the phone now?
Through passcode, fingerprint, or Face ID.
Face ID. Okay, Lila, what were you going to say? That was it? All right. So, there, some people will say between 4 and 5, there wasn't a lot of changes, very small. But then when you go from like 8 to 10, you've got really big changes. And I don't know if there's any big changes between 10 and 11. Do y'all know?
The
What?
camera's much better.
Okay, but is it like a really significant big change? I mean, does it film in 3D or anything like that?
Slightly better.
Do what?
Probably just like slightly.
Slightly better?
I don't know what a 10 looks like through camera, but I do know what 11 looks through. And compared to an 8 and an 8 Plus and the 11 Pro Max or something like that, the quality is much better.
Oh, okay. All
It's
right.
much
Different,
clearer.
like, colors. Like, there's
Different
more
colors? Okay. All right, so also last thing I want you to put on your slide is the impacts that it has on society. And you can include the negatives and the positives on one slide, or you can separate them and do 2 different slides, which you want to. But make sure when you do your presentations that you add a little bit of pizzazz to them, put a little color in them, put some pictures in there to make them interesting for everybody. Okay, do y'all have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Like with the questions like 5 through 9.
Uh-huh. In your notebook?
Yeah. I'm going
Okay.
to just use an example. Like if you use a sword.
Right.
Or something like warlock.
Yes.
It was still originally, like there's no way that it could have really been modified that much. Because it would still be like, in the past when it first started, it possibly would have still been a warlike.
For its
thing.
purpose, but what do you think could have changed about it? What?
like the better metal used.
Okay, the materials that were used in it, what else?
Sharpness.
The sharpness.
The sharpness,
the grip.
maybe the size?
Yeah. and,
Because do people walk around with swords today?
no.
Not really, I mean,
Unless it's like war.
yeah, if you're at war, maybe, so. Okay, so you might have to do a little investigation to figure that out. Anything else? Okay, guys, get started.